Yeah, so if we look at the state of education from the lowest level up, by lowest I mean youngest age, what we're seeing in education and the government's agenda taking on from New Labour is academies and free schools. And of course academies take the school out of any local authority, any democratic control whatsoever. I don't know whether you know, but an academy has to have 3 trustees. One can be the businessman or woman who puts in the money, and it can be a very little amount of money, and it can be deferred as well. So I'm a flash businessman. I can come to the local authority and say, I'm starting this school. I don't have to actually put much of the money up now, and the local authority will continue to give the lion's share of the money, but I get to run the curriculum. And I can appoint my partner, wife, husband, best friend as the second trustee, and then I have to appoint one independent person as the third trustee. I don't know whether any of you have ever sit on if you're student activists and you've been elected to bureaucracy, you might have sat on your college governing bodies. Governing bodies, the way they appoint people are their mates, and that's the so-called independent trustee. You can see, so 3 people can control the education of thousands of children in a school majority funded by the state. Free schools go even further. And when we're talking about privatisation in education, it's not necessarily like the postal service or the NHS where there's a definite monetary value afterwards. You know, people are definitely making money out of it. Free schools, there's no shareholders making money out of it. But what it's benefit that's happening here. So the new universities that the education minister wants to have, he said, it's going to be like Harvard. Well, someone like Harvard or a free school is a community that's benefiting its members and excluding other people, and that's why it's still central to privatisation, and that's why it's still got to be opposed. So it's not just local parents benignly starting a school and helping the struggling local kids. It's them ring fencing something for themselves. And that stands against what I believe education should be, and I'm sure you do as well. But so turning to higher education, we've just had the Willitz's white paper, which puts the market at the centre of education. It puts undercutting. Basically, he's saying private institutions, you should set up provision. You should undercut public universities. Of course, these people will be on bad pensions. There'll be no trade unions. They'll offer very limited courses. There'll be courses that would appeal to business people to fund the institution, thereby continuing, as it will be cheaper fees, to say to poorer students or those less willing to pay out the money, you should be doing these kind of vocational or whatever kind of courses. There's going to be more competition for places in a pool of places that are of institutions that have charged under 7,500. So it's quite complicated, but there used to be numbers, sort of student numbers used to be dictated from HEFCE. We thought that would be the Higher Education Funding Council. We thought that had been abolished, but it's still retained in this little pool of 20,000 places that people will actually bid for. So you'll be basically saying, I'm going to charge even less so I can bid for this little bit of money, which leads again to the attacks on the pensions and leads to attacks on the outsourcing of other staff and catering facilities and things like that. The new body that will replace HEFCE and the other lots of councils and things that administer universities and regulate them, the new council, I think it's just called the Higher Education Council, will be the last port of call for winding up higher education institutions, not saving them, not preserving them, but winding them up. We see at Royal Holloway, part of the University of London, this week they've announced that Pearson's, they are the people who make television programmes, but they also do exam books and things like that. They're going to be awarding degrees with a University of London degree via Royal Holloway. And I've spoken to the student union there. This has not been discussed in academic board or publicly agreed. It's a management issue, and it's just been done behind closed doors. And the first they hear of it is in the middle of July, that basically they've got a private company will be selling degrees basically of the University of London. Turning to another person who's doing that, it's AC Grayling, who will be selling degrees at the new College of the Humanities. Now this is quite a chilling situation. This really is privatisation, because this is private profit. This is actually making money out of of education for the shareholders, and you've got private equity people putting hundreds of £1,000s in to make money out of this. And of course they're going to be leeching off the academics who put the degrees together at the University of London. It's very complicated and I won't go into it, but it's basically he's leeching off existing degrees. But I'm very happy to say from the end of next week he will no longer be Professor A.C. Grayling, because he doesn't have a professor title, because he'll be leaving Birkbeck, so he'll be Mr. Grayling again, which is good. At London Met we see 70% of courses close, and if you look at the way they've allowed London Met to go and what's happened in the white paper, what will happen is privatisation of the rump of somewhere like London Met. So I can't remember the name of the company, but the people who run some private universities in the US, in Arizona, do you know the
University of Phoenix?
Yeah, what's the company that runs it? It's a big, it owns Apollo, owns BPP Law School as well in this country, which is a private school, university in this country. And what will happen, I believe, in the next 5 to 10 years is rumps of failing and cheaper course provision will be taken on by people like this and delivered as sort of semi-vocational education for poorer students. When somewhere like London Met, which is a widening participation institution, cuts 70% of its courses, including like the only Caribbean Studies course in London, and says to the students who might often live at home or have other jobs, you can go to Manchester to finish 1 year of your course. Well, of course they're not going to do that. So privatisation will happen at the bottom, but it will also happen at the top. So I think that it's likely within 10 years that there'll be some of the elite institutions will go private, so they can charge unlimited fees. The Russell Group had a partial victory in the £9,000 fees, but what they really want is a total market in education where they can charge anything and they can sack their staff, and that UCL's ending tenure, for example, for its professors. And I know these things to people who are not professors and not in the education might seem unimportant, but when they're attacking people delivering education, they're also attacking the people who are serving the food, who are cleaning the buildings, who should all be part of an academic community, of a university community, not not about private profit. And vice chancellors are agreeing with this agenda. They're not standing up for higher education as they haven't previously. They are continuing outsourcing within their institutions. They're supporting the employers' national bargaining on pensions and things like that. And I just say on pensions that they're not disproportionate. The costs are falling over 10 years. And I think a study last week said that 8%, the people in the public sector earn 8% less than the private sector. One thing that's happening at Birkbeck recently was when you go on strike, you used to have 1/365th of your pay taken. Now you're going to have 1/260th of your pay taken, making strike action more punitive. And we're not properly paying our sessional lecturers as well. We've got contracts with Sodexo, the people who catered Abu Ghraib. Similarly, our cleaning staff are all outsourced. And we as a university and as a college say we pay the living wage. But what's happening at Senate House, the organ that runs the university, the big building just a few buildings down, we've got Balfour Beatty, who I always thought were rail contractors and builders, but they actually do employ service staff on behalf of the University of London. They're earning the minimum wage, even though we have a policy of the living wage, and they are having anti-trade union activity. They're sacking trade unionists, and they're intimidating staff from joining a trade union. So even at a rich institution like the University of London, we're putting staff on the lowest possible conditions in central London. Now I'm starting this job as ULU Vice President next year. I can barely find accommodation on that wage, let alone if I was on the on the minimum wage or even the living wage, which they're refusing to pay. So I think everyone takes note of this. The way that higher education is going is private institutions at the top, privatisation and profit motive at the bottom of the institution, and continued attacks on pension, total outsourcing of all other services. I mean, the Arizona people are actually offering to run university services in totality, and that means that their staff wouldn't be a staff of the university. At Birkbeck, if you work there, and of course it's a part-time evening university, you can do a course for free. Although of course they're restricting those numbers. If you're not employed by the university, well, come to work and go home. But there is a fight back that's going on. Next year in ULU we'll be doing cross-London campaigns on New College of the Humanities. We had a meeting of 200 people, including senior academics there, livid that their course stuff is being nicked, on Sodexo, on UCL, tenure ending and outsourcing and the master plan there, on no confidence in David Willits. There's a lot of student activity that's still going on. We saw the student movement last year exploding, but what we're now seeing is the UCU and Unison and getting serious about what's going on in higher education. So I'm not going to go into an analysis of where the student movement is. That's probably a different panel. But there is some hope. But I think it's vital that students work absolutely with trade unions on. We were all on the NHS demo last week as those comrades come on the student stuff with us. And I think the great thing about the student movement is we do a variety of things. So one day it'll be invading a meeting of Richard Dawkins and distributing £10 notes with his face on them at the Humanitarian of the Year award. And the next week it'll be on a picket line with UCU people on strike, helping them enforce the picket line, so to speak. So I think there's a lot of hope. But what Willits is doing and what Gove is doing are chilling. And of course, I haven't even mentioned EMA and the way they're stopping poor students even doing A levels. But they're chilling. But I think if we need a comprehensive fight back and a unity between students, workers, unemployed, etc., to do this. And I think we've got some hope on that. So.